Peace and Black Power family. Harlem educator, author, and activist, the Black Liberation Coach, Brother Agyei Tyehimba. I just want to take a few moments to welcome you to Harlem Liberation School's YouTube channel. Harlem Liberation School was started in 2016 by myself and my queen, and we basically saw that there was a lack of foundational Black political education going on in Harlem. We're not going to get up from under white supremacy without knowing how oppression works, how it affects and impacts in our community, the ways in which we internalize our own oppression and engage in self-defeating behavior and thinking, and our socio-political movements and our very important individuals and organizations throughout our history who played a leading role in fighting against and resisting and disrupting white supremacy. So Harlem Liberation School was founded as a Black political education center for adults. Because education is not just relegated to children. Adults need education. It's those of us adults who maybe when we were kids did not get that foundational Africana studies of Black political education. The things we need to know to be free and to fight effectively for our liberation. And so that's what we're here to do. We hope that you will come through, check us out, look at our videos, like them, comment on them, and share them. Peace and Black Power.
Peace and Black Power family. Harlem educator, author, and activist, the Black Liberation Coach, Brother Agyei Tyehimba. You know, I'm filming live on location in that wonderful historical and political village of Harlem, New York. We are broadcasting live, family, on Facebook on my personal page under my name. We're broadcasting live at Harlem Liberation School on YouTube, and we're broadcasting live on my page under my name on Twitter. So we hope that we're hitting some Africans somewhere by hitting 3 different platforms simultaneously. We certainly welcome you. Thank you for coming out. We don't care about the numbers. We know that all great things take time to develop. I'm an older man. I'm a wiser man. I know that things don't happen overnight, so I'm not even worrying about how many people are here live. I know that we're going to reach you one way or the other, family, through consistent action. Consistency, we're going to reach you. Consistency and competency, we're going to reach you. And as X-Clan said, or actually as Parliament Funkadelic said, you shall all be moved. We believe that. The truth will move the people. Family, we're going to talk briefly about the topic of culture. Very important. And my hope is that we'll share something or discuss something that will move you, that will inspire you, ignite you if you're not ignited already, to really think about ways we can dig deeper. We can accelerate the pace of our community organizing, of our political education, and all these other things, institution building. But I believe the foundation is culture. Now, what is culture exactly? Well, let's take it from a more popular definition to a more political one. If you look at Wikipedia, for example, they would say culture is an umbrella term which encompasses the social behavior, institutions, and norms found in human societies, as well as the knowledge, beliefs, arts, laws, customs, capabilities, and habits of the individuals in these groups. Now, that's a whole lot of words, family. A lot of verbiage going on there. Easy to get lost in what we mean by culture at its foundation. I prefer to draw upon the way that our late but great Baba Amos Wilson looked at culture, and probably the way that many of our Africana studies scholars and activists look at culture. Dr. Wilson basically drew upon a definition that he quoted from some other scholars, but that he believed himself, as generally speaking, a set of rules and procedures, ideas, and values for meeting needs of a group. Very simply and very much to the point. What is culture then? How we define it's hard to define it in one sentence without a million different words. So let's simplify it. Let's describe culture by talking about what it does, right? And if we can understand that, then you get the power of culture. You'll understand why, in many respects, we are suffering uh, of calamities in various areas of human existence, and you'll understand at the same time one of the key ways that we will fight back and that we will be successful. In my humble opinion, is through culture, family, and there's no way around it. So, what is culture then? Well, let's look at the things it does. Culture analyzes and solves problems. Number one of the first things a culture does, a successful, effective, empowering culture. Culture provides the group with a sense of identity. Culture helps the group answer the key philosophical questions. Who am I? What are we doing here? What do I need to do to be who I say I am? To what degree am I successfully being who I say I am or who we say we are, right? Culture creates, promotes, and enforces values. Creates, promotes, and enforces values. What are the things we hold dear? What are the things that are important to us? Right? Right? Culture outlines group priorities. What are the most important things in order in our society? What are the things we are prepared to live for, die for, and maybe even kill for? Those are your priorities. And priorities are important because we rank them. Knowing that there are things that are of greater importance and things of lesser importance, right? We wisely, through our culture, establish the things that are most important, make sure that we give most of our time, energy, and resources to our priorities. But if your culture has been made backwards, if your culture has been attacked, and your culture has been negatively impacted, you'll be spending most of your time, energy, and resources on the things that are of little importance, and you allow the things of great importance, like how do we survive? How do we protect ourselves? How do we educate our young, right? You let those things fall by the wayside because your priorities, your process of prioritization has been damaged because your culture has been damaged. Culture outlines group behavior and expectations. Your culture will do things like, say, define what behavior is inappropriate and appropriate. Your culture will outline behavior that will be disciplined and behavior that will be encouraged. All of this comes from your culture. Now, when we were in elementary school, they told us the simple sentence because we were young. They told us the culture is your way of life. Culture is what you eat, how you dress, your language, and stuff like that. But we have to understand culture is so much broader and more expansive than that. It's so much more important than just what we wear, how we speak, and what we eat, family. Culture represents the totality of your existence. So if we were to go further, we would say culture identifies certain rituals, certain customs, certain traditions. So that your holidays are part of your culture, right? Culture identifies and celebrates or vilifies the group heroes and group villains. Through our culture, we identify those people whose behaviors and contributions and ideas we revere, we value, and we support. And we celebrate such people through holidays and different sort of memorials and things of that nature. And our culture also kind of dictates those people whose contributions, behavior, and ideas go against our livelihoods, threaten our development and our survival. And those people we vilify. What if your culture is disturbed and retarded? What if your culture is made dysfunctional? You may be confused about who your friends are and who your enemies are. You may be saluting and revering those who you should actually be castigating and going against. Culture is all important, family. much more than the clothes you wear, right? Your culture works to promote group survival and development. It is functional. It is not symbolic. It is functional, right? So what does this mean? Well, in one respect, we can say your culture protects the group. And mind you, remember, culture is not an individualistic thing. Culture is talking about for a collective, for a group of people. The culture protects the group from harmful ideas, practices, and individuals. Right? This one is of particular importance to us. As we look around and observe things in our community that we disavow, that causes us much discouragement, causes some of us to feel demoralized. And we see things we don't like. We say, man, when I was young, this wasn't happening. Well, why wasn't it happening? Was the white man nicer back then? No. The white man was just as, and not just white man, let me be very clear. White supremacy, capitalism, right? Oppression. It wasn't easy back then, is that our culture was more vibrant. Our culture was more intact and was more functional. So while enemies were coming against us through legislation and through economics and through all these other things, our culture provided a form of protection. It taught us things that was designed to protect us in bad times from bad people. But our culture, like our ozone layer, has been eroded, right? So we're seeing things we're not liking. Anyone that's particularly middle-aged and older knows exactly what I'm talking about. I should also mention that culture, although it represents the totality of your existence, culture is fundamentally ideological. Culture is based on beliefs and a way of thinking and a way of perceiving reality and a way of evaluating one's circumstances, one's group, right? So culture, therefore, is dynamic. It can change. It can ebb and flow, right? Just like language can change, meanings of words can change, how people see themselves can change. What people call themselves and allow other people to call them can change. How people identify themselves primarily can change, right? And we see all of these changes right now as I'm speaking to you. I should also say culture is functional. I want to repeat, not just symbolic, not just, oh, we get together for a cultural festival, and for us that means we wear mud cloth, right? If you're Muslim, we wear hajji. It means different things. You got carry shell. That's culture in a symbolic way. But culture, remember, is functional. It means that your culture serves a function beyond just looking a certain way. Your culture, ideally, is supposed to protect your group, advance your group, help your group to understand and see the world as it is, not as they want it to be. And then furthermore, it's supposed to equip and empower your group with the tools, the skill sets, and the thinking to navigate in that world and to impact on that world. In some respects, to bend the world to your will, to solve the unique problems that you see. This is important because this means that we have a way of evaluating our cultures. We can say, is your culture solving your problems as a group? If you say we don't have enough people, that police are killing us, is your culture teaching you things, building institutions in a way that helps you to challenge the murder of black bodies? No, then your culture is ineffective and inefficient. Is your culture, if you look and you see, man, our people ain't got no money. We have no money saved. We have very little assets. We're not investing. We live in paycheck to paycheck. The culture should be teaching ideas and building institutions and creating rituals and customs that change that. Whereas your people now are stacking paper and are are using their money or wealth in powerful ways that empower our people and that help us to be autonomous and sovereign. If your culture is not doing that, guess what? Strike two. Your culture is ineffective and inefficient, right? If we say, man, our kids, they seem not to listen to us, they don't respect us, they're rebellious. Well, that's always been the case and across time, but it seems like it's getting worse and worse. Then your culture should be creating institutions, norms, values, sayings, practices that are connecting with our youth, that are widely practiced, not just amongst one or two people, but immersed across our group. And we'll be seeing what? Growth in our church. We'll be seeing changed behavior, better behavior from our children. Now, I'm going to argue. Now, you want the good news first or the bad news? Which one do you want first? Because we can really get into it. The bad news, family, and I have to be responsible because I am a scholar. I'm an educator, but I'm also a scholar, right? And I have to be responsible. I have to report to you that although more black people over the ages of 25 are getting a college education, at least 2 years of a bachelor's degree at minimum, which is a good thing depending on how we use it. Our unemployment rate is double that of whites for over 60 years straight. We still have less than half the assets materially of white folk. And there are other groups who I probably don't need to mention, but I'll say it anyway. Latinos, Asians, right? Who are not quite have eclipsed us. Not the Latinos quite yet. The Asians have. But in terms of property ownership, in terms of asset ownership, in terms of the acquisition of education, all the tools, the indicators that we use to say, oh, this group is doing it in this society, in this modern day age, we're being eclipsed. I am working in high schools, family. I'm teaching. I'm seeing things that are absolutely unbelievable. I was in a class and saw a young lady doing a live broadcast in the middle of her class on Instagram, right? On her phone. Now, there's a few things wrong with that, but one of the first things is policy-wise, we're supposed to have a culture that says if we know our kids are distracted, they're underperforming, right? That they're in situations where they're being almost steered societally to lives of crime. They're almost being fed to the prison system. Because what happens? The society inculcates or develops appetites in our kids. Appetites. Appetites for what? For money. We all want the bag. I want the bag. They can't tell you exactly, well, how much money should be in that bag. How do we go about getting that bag? What are the skills and qualities that one must have to get that bag without knocking somebody upside their head or robbing a bank? But they have the appetite for it. And then the society, through these schools and institutions, systematically deprives them of the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, the skill set, and the character, family, to go out there and get that bag. See, we don't study people who got the bag and what all the stuff they had to do to get it, and all the times they failed, and all the times they had to get back up, and all the times people didn't believe in them, right? And all the mistakes they had to make, and how they had to believe in themselves, and all the things they had to go through for years before they got the bag. And then the things they had to do to keep the bag, and the things they had to do to make sure that their people benefited from the bag. We don't know that. It's not taught to our kids. So what happens when you develop an appetite in a person for wealth, but don't tell them how to go out there and get it for real, and you don't prepare them for all the knocks, the ups and downs they got to go through? They think they could just have an idea, just because they have an idea, that they're going to get paid. They're not taught the science of business. Business is a science, family. Not just an art, not just creative, it's a science. There's laws to that. What does it do? It sets our youth up crime. Because what happens? You realize, oh man, my get rich quick idea didn't work. Of course not. Those things never work. And most people ain't going to hit the lottery. Most of us are not going to inherit millions from a family member. So it means we have to know the science of these things, right? It sets our people up for crime, family. We see this. I'm not making this up. In our families, we see people selling drugs, hustling, gambling, doing all types of stuff. Why? Because at the end of the day, we all got to eat. We got to have clothing, shelter, pay some type of bills. But we weren't taught how to do that properly, right? We complain about relationships. We complain about all of these different things. Housing, more homeless black people, more black people going to jail, more younger people going to jail, more black girls going to jail. Well, we can see the problem. If our culture was right and exact, though, if our culture was vibrant, if our culture was in tune with the reality of the day, our culture itself through various institutions, the home, places of worship, even businesses, after school programs, and even schools we'd be building would address some of those issues. Right? So that's the bad news. The good news is culture is malleable. Culture is ideological. It means that we can change our culture. I'm going to argue to you right now that we are experiencing, and far too many of us are operating, a culture of defeatism, a culture of escapism, a culture of poverty, a culture of negative thinking, a culture of violence against each other, a culture of giving love and respect and support to our enemies and not showing that same love, support, respect to ourselves. But we can change that. And we don't need every single new African or black person to do it. We can change that, but we got to take the cultural piece very, very seriously. I've been doing some reading and studying on spirituality, some political science, some economics. And I'm convinced that it would take 100 years minimum for our people to be where we need to be ideally. And that would be roughly 50 years just to undo most of the damage done to us, just to get all the negative teachings, the false teachings, the anecdotal, the assumptions that are wrong, all that out of our head, to breed that out of us. And then another 50 to replace that foolishness with the things we need to survive and develop. It's not easy, family. These things take time, but we can do it. But those of us who are on the same page got to move. We have to accelerate our efforts. We have to teach basic principles, Black solidarity. We have to be able to be mature enough to sit at the table with elements of our community with whom we disagree and be able to get things done together. Even as we dispute with each other, still be able to push things through. Very important. We have to be realistic. We have to look at the world objectively. Where do we fall short as a people? Where are we too soft? Where do we need improvement? And throw the ego stuff away. Because don't be like the fool. See, the fool will have a problem with, let's say, the fool they want to get in great shape. The fool is in terrible shape physically. Right? The fool lives on the same block with a bunch of black folk that are experts in fitness. But the fool's ego will say, I don't want to go to them. They think they all that. Ain't that something? That's a sickness we got to get rid of. They think they all that. No, they don't. They're just in really good shape because they put in the work and they walk around proudly as they should. So what the fool would do is take their insecurities and project their insecurities on other people. They say they think they're all that. No, you think they're all that. They think they're better than me. No, you think they're better than you because you have a low estimation of yourself, right? But if the culture was in place right, our kids would love themselves and be proud, and they wouldn't be moved by some person on the street say, "Hey, girl, you looking good." That wouldn't move them. Why? Because they know they look good, right? That wouldn't move them. You wouldn't. We would deal with the issue of black girls and women being abducted and sold into human trafficking rings. Our culture would deal with that because our culture would say that the women of our culture are priceless and invaluable. They are the ones that give birth to this culture. Many times they're the backbones of our organizations and our homes. We will not allow outsiders or people in our own group to hurt our sisters, period. And our culture would create the capacity, the institutions, the militias, the whatever to deal with that. Period. That's cultural. What has happened to us? A lot has happened, but our culture has been damaged, family. Now let me take a pause because I'm on my little soapbox. Let me look at some of these beautiful comments from the people, man, because y'all are what this is all about, not me. First, we got the Queen Bee. This is my love right here. Brenda Hilaire says, Wakusu to the people. Wakusu is our acronym for Wake Up, Clean Up, Stand Up, by the way. She goes on to say that if this is your first time joining us, we thank you for spending your time with us. Please like the video, subscribe if you're on YouTube, right, or Twitter. If you're watching this through Facebook, obviously, it'll be a different message, but please keep coming back. Support us. Support those who support you, fam. You know how it goes. Oh, that's my brother, my young brother, Taji, my young revolutionary brother. Yeah. He says culture is an institutionalization of values. Absolutely. I like his definition. I like the way he looks at that. And Queen says, yes, that culture is our foundation, right? So I see a number of people are checking us out. I see a lot of different comments. I'm going to try to put them up as I can. Sister Henny Miller, peace to my sister. She says, right. I don't know exactly what she's referring to, but it sounds like she was in agreement with something. We thank you for that. And family, I hope that y'all really feeling me. The good news and the bad news. The bad news is we are way behind, family. We are. We are way behind. I even talked to some of the hustlers around my way. And they told me these are the hustlers that are my age that I knew growing up that were doing it, what they do, the dirt they do now, they were doing when we were teens. And I talked to them in their 50s and 60s, and they even are telling me that even in the hustling world, they said, man, these young boys, man, they have no code. They don't listen to anybody. You can't school them on nothing. They think they know everything. They're wild and disorganized. So what I'm saying goes not only for our citizens who are law abiding, but for those involved in that are part of the lumpen proletariat, as Karl Marx would say, the people who are involved in prostitution, the drugs, the gambling, and things of that nature, right? The boosting. They're even seeing what I'm saying. So this is what I want to leave you with, family. If we say that we want to get our kids right, that it seems like there's a generational gap that's very deleterious. I always like that word, negative. And we see that that's not changing, that it's getting worse. That is an indictment on our culture. We must reimagine and repurpose our culture. We need to sit back and say, man, what about how we think and behave is backwards and dysfunctional, and we have to eliminate it and replace it. Why do you think the Honorable Elijah Muhammad came to the people with bean pies? Why do you think the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was so big on eating a certain way? Why do you think that Father Allah, Clarence 13X of the 5% Nation of Gods and Earths, was so big on knowledge of self and reading and knowing the divine alphabet, the supreme mathematics. These were all attempts to change the way we think and behave. These are people who came into our lives at a historical moment and said, man, we're not doing well. We got to change it. Same with Brother Garvey. Same thing. All great nationalists and Pan-Africanists see that the foundational fundamental battle is for the hearts and minds of our people. That we, in order to live better, to be safe, to love each other, to be able to develop your skills without artificial barriers in your way, to be liberated, we must change the way we think. We must. Carter G. Woodson famously wrote about this in his book, Miseducation of the Negro. So many people, so family, I'm really hoping that we will have conversations. If we're already in the movement and we're doing work, I salute you for the work you do. Whether it's big or small work, I would only encourage you to have these discussions with your family. Have these discussions in your organizations. What can we do better? How can we reach more of our people? How can we meet people where they are and take them where they need to be? But to be more analytical, where are we failing in our community? In terms of finances, economy, in terms of jobs, in terms of physical health. Black people are still dying in record numbers of diabetes and hypertension and strokes and heart attacks and cancers. Our culture is supposed to address that, family. Why? How does it do that? Your culture will create a different way of eating. Your culture will promote healthier eating. Your culture will promote exercise and not having a sedentary lifestyle. If we feel the relationships are fragile, families are falling apart, okay, your culture will identify that and it will come up with rituals and customs and wise sayings and practices that promote a healthier way of us relating to each other, of us loving each other and taking care of each other and not letting our elders be alone and die in poverty alone like Dr. Ben did, family. Our culture would have prevented that. So this is all I'm trying to say, family. I want to thank you for joining. I don't want to belabor the point. I thank you very much for joining us, and I hope you help me and us spread the word. Culture is our shield and our weapon. It is not just how we dress and how we talk. And if we get our culture right and we reinvigorate our culture and we make our culture more functional again, we can win this battle, but it will not be done without culture. We have to create a culture where we love each other, a culture where we know we're not hitting on women or women hitting on men in relationships. There's a culture where we have appropriate behaviors and inappropriate behaviors that are promoted and reinforced continually and consistently. A culture where we are self-sufficient and autonomous. We grow our own food. Young kids are valued not by the size of their genitalia, but by the size of their hearts and minds and contribution to our people. Right? That's cultural. All of that is cultural. So I challenge us to reimagine our priorities, our values, our ideas, our practices, our expectations, our priorities, family. That's where we're going to win this battle. With that said, I believe if we do that, I have 3 words, and those 3 words are always going to be, we will win. I want to thank you all for joining us, taking time out to join me on a kind of a late night. And who we have? Oh, Sister Eddie, thank you. And thank you. That's very sweet of you to say. Yes, I appreciate that. And right back at you, my sister. And Olatunji in the building. Love that name, by the way. Thank you for your support. Family, I'm going to sign out. I'm going to spend some time with the family, with the beautiful queen. And y'all have a beautiful evening. And we might do a Black Power sermon tomorrow, building off of this idea and concept of culture. Peace, family. Peace and Black Power. We will win.